Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here to talk about the Cruiserweight Championship fight that's taking place this week between champion Danny Green and challenger Antonio Tarver. BoxRec has listed this fight as a 5-star fight, their highest rating. Let's try to take a crack at it. But before I go further, just remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. There is an unbeaten champion, and it's Father Time. To quote one of my favorites, Jim Morrison, no one here gets out alive, right? The guys who give the optical illusion of being able to beat Father Time are fighters who, quite frankly, are fitness freaks. People like Bernard Hopkins, Vitaly Klitschko, Glenn Johnson, Evander Holyfield, right? You cannot beat Father Time, in my opinion, if you're gaining weight, then losing weight, right? Fitness freaks are in shape 24 hours a day, right? Vitaly Klitschko was able to fight Lennox Lewis on 2 weeks' notice because he was already in fighting shape. I don't think the same can be said about 42-year-old Antonio Tarver, whose last fight was at heavyweight. In fact, it might surprise some people that Antonio Tarver has never fought at cruiserweight. Never. His success, most of it, was at light heavyweight, and understand there is a huge gap in weight between light heavy, which is at 175, and cruiser, which is at 200. I understand that Danny Green comes in several pounds lighter than the cruiserweight limit, but understand that Danny Green is the opposite of Antonio Tarver. Danny Green has been pretty consistent in his weight of late, and Danny Green looks like he's a guy who is a fitness freak. For boxing fans, and I'm going to address two different groups because two different groups apparently watch my videos. One are boxing fans who just want an idea on who is going to win the fight. The other are gamblers who are willing to take risks on certain outcomes, even when those outcomes aren't the most likely outcomes, right? To the boxing fan crowd, I like Danny Green to win this fight. I think Danny Green successfully defends his title. I'm expecting Antonio Tarver to come out, even older fighters, and both of these guys are older, but Tarver is older than Green. I believe Green's about 38, Tarver's 42. I expect Antonio Tarver's best rounds to be early in the fight. I think Tarver's going to try to make some noise. He is a southpaw. I'm expecting him to come out and try to dictate the early part of this fight. If you're an Antonio Tarver fan, the fight that I believe would be the blueprint for a Tarver victory is Antonio Tarver against Clinton Woods. Woods, very heavy-handed guy. Tried to stalk down Tarver. Kind of fights a little bit like Danny Green. And of course, Tarver was able to dismantle Woods over 12 rounds. Pretty systematic outboxing of Woods, who was more of a puncher than a boxer. Right? The reason why I do not believe that that blueprint holds in this fight is because Danny Green, in my opinion, doesn't come in straight like Woods. Green actually has much better feet than Woods. Right? Green moves around the ring more. Green comes in on angles. Right? Also, Green, his mobility was evident late in his fight against another tall southpaw, Stipe Davis, from whom Green won the light heavyweight title years ago before retiring from the sport. Green then returned as a cruiserweight. But Green, to me, is more mobile than Woods. He's bigger than Woods. He hits with both hands, right? He's a very heavy-handed guy for a cruiserweight. Quite frankly, I think Danny Green hits much harder than Marco Huck, who just got a knockout this last weekend, right? So I'm expecting what Tarver's going to find out is he's not as young as he was when he fought Clinton Woods. He's going to find that Green is much more mobile than Woods, and he's going to find that Danny Green is going to be a much more demanding opponent in the second half of this fight than Chad Dawson was when Antonio Tarver fought Chad Dawson. Keep in mind, I consider Dawson to be better than both of these guys, but fight style-wise, while several recent Dawson fights went the distance, understand that only once since 2007 has Danny Green been forced to go the distance. That was his last fight against BJ Flores, who's a pretty excellent boxer, right? Danny Green ends fights by KO. He's not going to be in there to outbox Antonio Tarver. He's going to be in there to break down a 42-year-old. So what I think is going to happen is I believe the pattern of the fight is going to be that Tarver has his moments early, then simply gets worn down in the second half of the fight. The way I see this fight going, well, first let me say, I like Danny Green to win the fight. That's for boxing fans. For gamblers, things get a little bit more complicated, as they always do for gamblers, right? The line right now is Danny Green to win at minus 320. I'm just taking this off of an online source, right? The over-under is an eye-opener, right? If you're a gambler, that over-under has to catch your attention. You're getting either a plus 200 for the under 10.5 rounds. That's the midway point of the 11th round. And believe it or not, on different sites, you can get a plus 170. In other words, much greater than even money, which is a plus 100, right? You're getting a plus 170 on the under 11.5 rounds. Now, my point to you, and I know this is an imperfect situation, imperfect straddle, and I understand that neither guy has ever been knocked out. Danny Green has no knockout losses. Antonio Tarver has no knockout losses. But given the styles of the fighters and the ages of the fighters, one's 38, one's 42, Danny Green, heavy-handed, usually wins by knockout. Antonio Tarver having to lose 20 pounds from his last fight to make weight for this fight, right? Tarver, not a fitness buff like Evander Holyfield, right? The logistics of this fight tell me that there is a distinct possibility, that this fight ends inside of the distance. If you're a gambler, this is one of those regrettable situations where you might have to do a straddle, where the most likely outcome would actually lose you some money, right? But hopefully we can hedge that loss to get exposure to a less likely outcome that still is a distinct possibility, and that's the fact that this fight ends inside of the distance. The bet I'm recommending is to take Danny Green to win this fight straddled against the under 10.5 rounds at plus 200. That's just simply too tasty to pass up. The logic is simply that I'm expecting Antonio Tarver, one of my favorite fighters. I think Tarver, quite frankly, is one of my favorite boxing analysts. He's excellent on Showtime. I'm expecting him, though, to find out that his most formidable opponent is Father Time, and I'm expecting him to wilt in Australia. The fight's in Danny Green's backyard, but I'm expecting him to wilt as Danny Green comes forward, continuing to throw bombs. Right? At some point, a 42-year-old in a fight is going to start to feel 42 years old, especially when his opponent is just not having it and is coming forward with bombs in both hands. Also, Danny Green's power is the kind of power that ends fights, right? He doesn't just knock you down and then you're still alert and you get back up and you're able to continue. No, Danny Green takes you out, right? Roy Jones, after getting knocked out by Danny Green, unable to throw a single punch after he got off the canvas. I think Danny Green closes the show here. The beautiful thing with the straddle is that if Danny Green gets the knockout in under 10.5 rounds before the midway point of the 11th round, you win a bounty, right? You win on the Danny Green to win minus 320 side, but you also win a nice plus 200 on the under, right? Here's a challenge. You know, Tarver, believe it or not, and I know all of us remember the Roy Jones knockout, is actually more of a boxer than a puncher. He's only stopped one guy since 2007. One. His fights usually go the distance, and that connotes that he has stamina. So just like it's a distinct possibility, and, you know, I believe the desired play is to have exposure to that under. Just understand that there is a possibility that Danny Green wins this fight, but that it goes the distance. Like Danny Green's fight against Ty Davis, and like every fight that Antonio Tarver has had since 2007. So if you're a gambler, understand the risk. Also, the numbers are such that if I were to bet 640 on Danny Green to win, I would only be in line to collect $200. And the problem with the 200 at plus 200 on the straddle side is just that it only gets me $400 in winnings. So the point is, given the pricings, if you take the straddle and anything happens other than Danny Green winning this fight by knockout in the first 10.5 rounds, you're probably going to lose money on the play. If you're a hardcore gambler, you understand that it's actually a good play to have a situation where you lose a little money for a chance to win big money. And then, of course, if the big money play hits, you're in the penthouse. You're not in economy. You're in first class, right? I think hardcore gamblers get that, but most of the public wants to win on every bet. And if you're that kind of gambler, if you think that any bet in which you're likely to lose money, like here, is a bad bet, then this, quite frankly, is not the fight to bet on. This is not the play for you. So the bet I'm recommending, and it's risky, is Danny Green to win the fight, straddled against the under 10.5 at 2-1, plus 200. And if, of course, Antonio Tarver comes out and is able to land a haymaker, he's talking big before the fight, saying that he needs a knockout to win in Australia. If he gets that knockout, then your losses are hedged a little bit, since you would have exposure to the under 10.5 if the knockout comes in the first 10.5 at plus 200. I like Green to win, straddle against the under 10.5 at plus 200. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube and visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.